As I understand, a lot of Christians believe that the law of Moses is done away. Well, if well, let me go around in regard to some other things, and usually it's because of Paul, the Roman Pharisee, who came afterwards, and usually that's the reason why people are going into lawlessness and actually attacking the so-called Judaizers. Well, you could actually call them Judaizers, but it doesn't really have a negative thing on it. You think it's better to be a Romanizer? Anyway, so just by the New Testament, Yeshua is saying, that, the law will not be, done away as long as the heavens and the earth is still here. And if I look down out the window, the earth is still here and the heavens are still there. So, the law must still be valid. Now, anyway, so besides that, we know from history, different sources that I've read and all that there was two gospels in the name of Yeshua that went out into the world. Now, the first one was, the so-called Judaizers in regards of teaching the scriptures still and all that. And then we have another gospel going out, which is in the name of Yeshua, but it has this subtlety of removing the law and getting us away from the scriptures. And the thing is, if you begin to break down those things and don't think they are authoritarian and all that, well, it opens the door for Satan to get in there. And that's, that has been a battle for, hundreds and hundreds of years. So, starting in the first century, and so Yeshua warned us about wolves in sheep clothing, and that could, if possible, deceive the elect. Yet, we should know them by their fruit, right? So anyway, so he warned his disciples about wolves in sheep clothing, something that looks like the real thing and yet is not. So let's go back to the first Christians, right? The first Christians was the Nazarenes. And the Nazarenes, a lot of these guys, had heard Jesus, they had talked with Jesus, they had eaten with Jesus, and so forward. These were the apostles and disciples and all that of the, mostly the Jews. As far as I can see, it seems like that, we know that there were some Greeks that actually seem to also, have heard about Jesus, and thereby, they might actually have been part of the so-called Judaizers in regards to the Nazarenes. So, in any case, we see in the book of Acts that Paul, according to the book of Acts, is coming to Jerusalem. And what does James, and James would be the brother of Jesus and pretty much the head of the congregation in Jerusalem, and that would be the mother church. Yes, Rome is not the mother church. That is, she might be the mother whore of Mystery Babylon the Great, of confusion and pagan bullshit and twisting and murder, and, she's strung by the blood of the saints, right? Anyway, there's always been a battle down through these hundreds of years and all that. In any case, so the real mother congregation of Christianity was Jerusalem. That's where Yeshua was executed, right? So, what did the first group of the Nazarenes believe? Did they believe that the law was done away? No, not according to the book of Acts. Actually, they apparently had some maybe so-called rumors. They might actually have been true. So, I don't know. But in any case, James, or Yaakov, in Hebrew that would be Yaakov, the brother of Jesus, that should have known him pretty good, right? Having grown up with his big brother and all that, I would think that he would probably have known him pretty good, And anyway, Yeshua had 4 brothers. We have their names and all that. He also had sisters, 2 or 3 or more. We don't know. Well, there are some outside sources in regards of names and all that. We don't have a specific how many and so forward. But it's 2 or 3 or more, because it's, Anyway, but we don't have their names. So we have the names of Jesus' brothers, fleshly more in regards of family, whatever. Of course, Yeshua was, of course, special because his father was God. Anyway, and by the Holy Spirit, Mary was made pregnant and so forward. In any case, let's go back to this. So we see in the book of Acts that, Paul is coming back, and then James is saying, or Yaakov is saying, hey, we heard something that you're teaching the Jews to forsake, the customs of the Jews. And is it also Moses? I can't remember. It's it's in the middle of the book of Acts. So anyway, and James is like, or Yaakov is like, but that couldn't be true. Right, Paul? Right, Paul? It couldn't be true. Right, Paul? Anyway, so Yaakov pretty much says, we have 4 guys, and they need to be purified and all that, and you can purify yourself with them and pay the price and all that. I do wonder where he got all that money from, because it's actually not cheap. But anyway, whatever. Of course, there was the money from the congregations that he collected from, right? In any case, whatever. He's really, it seems like he's really focused on the money thing in some of his of the letters. But anyway, so and the question is, when was Paul commanded, or Paulus? When was Paulus or Shaul commanded to actually collect money into the, to the church of Jerusalem? Any case, but anyway, so Yaakov goes into saying, this, and that there couldn't be anything about that, and as you see, there are many Jews that have come to believe, and they are all zealous for the law. I hope I'm getting that right in regards to the right place. I should probably look it up. Let's see if we can find it in the book of Acts, so I'm not making a mistake here. Of course, he's also saying that in regards to the Gentiles, we have 4 commandments that are actually biblical. These are, according to the book of Acts, necessary commandments. It's not to say that we only should it's not to say that we only should do those 4 commandments, because Moses, the scriptures, the so-called Old Testament, have been read aloud on every Sabbath in the synagogue. That's the meeting house and all that. That's where you listen to the scriptures, right? Anyway, so let's see if we can find it. Acts 15 or something like that. That would be around 15, I guess. Maybe a little further. Let's see where we are, if I can find it. And there they go up to figure out, oh yeah, okay, so that's the first, where they talk about abstain from defilement of idols, so, of false gods, pretty much. And that would be in regards of eating food sacrificed to false gods, and from whoring, and from what is strangled. And I guess that would include, again, these commandments as biblical commandments found in the Torah. Anyway, so in regards to strangled, besides not letting the blood bleed, there's also commandments not to eat anything that have died of itself, and of course that would, in some sense, still be, a strangled, and it's not, the blood hasn't been, Anyway, and from blood, so that's 4 commandments. And then it goes on, for from ancient generations, Moshe, that's Moses, has in every city those proclaiming him, being read in the congregations every Sabbath. To me, it sounds like, hey, it was expected that the Gentiles, the new Gentiles that are not Jews, at least not fleshly Jews, You might consider them spiritual Jews in regards of Yeshua being a Jew, and that we are born of God, right? And if Jesus is a Jew and so forth, I don't know. But in any case, it seemed like the Christians in the beginning centuries was actually just considered Jews, Anyway, by the Romans and all that, if you went to, you're just considered, pretty much, a Jew. Anyway, so when we look at the book of Revelation, where Jesus talks about real Jews and all that, that might be in regards of fake Christians or true Christians. Anyway, let's see. So from ancient generations, Moshe has in every city those proclaiming him, being read in the congregations every Sabbath. So to me, it sounds like, hey, Christians would be, the Gentile Christians would be expected to listen to the scriptures. And of course, if we just throw out the scriptures, we pretty much have Satan running all over us. And by the way, in the book of Revelation, where Yeshua gets Yochanan, that's John, to write to the 7 congregations in Asia Minor, and by the way, that's the area that rejected Paul, by the way, according to Paul himself, that's 2 Timothy 1:15. But anyway, then he actually uses stories, using things that is actually where he's pointing in some sense back, because if you don't read the scriptures, you wouldn't know what he's, you wouldn't know the behind ideas of these things that he's mentioning. So it sounds like that Yeshua were expecting us to read the scriptures, that so-called Old Testament that has a lot of prophecies in regards to the future and so forward still. Has a lot of prophecies that is yet to be fulfilled. Yeshua came to fulfill, but everything is not yet fulfilled, okay? Everything is fulfilled in the future, according to the book of Revelation, talks about when everything in regards of God's things are fulfilled, Anyway, so everything is not fulfilled yet. Yeshua came to fulfill, and that's not to say that he fulfilled everything that is to fulfill, because there's still a lot of prophecies in the future in regards of his second coming and a lot of other things and ongoing prophecies today. Anyway, let's get back to the topic here. So we have the four times. And if you actually take the 3 times, it's talked about 3 times in regards of these four things, in regards of abstaining from defilement of idols or false gods, in regards of when you sacrifice the food or the meat to a false god, and you're eating it, apparently that's defilement, And of course, Yeshua is rebuking in regards to that doctrine as well in the book of Revelation. And he's talking to Ephesus that apparently had some false apostles that needed to be tested. And they found them liars. And they must have rejected them. And then, of course, you go to the last letter of Paulus. And he writes, as you know, all Asia has left me. And I turned that back to this great so-called apostle Paulus, the Roman Pharisee. Didn't Jesus warn us about the leaven of the Pharisees and so forward? Now, of course, Paulus is a great witness in regards of Yeshua, but there's some leaven in his letters. And, so you really have to be careful. And you can really see people, because there's so many Christians nowadays that pretty much only read the letters of Paulus, and they end on going total lawless. They end up going into saying that the law is abolished, is done away, is thrown on the cross and all that and this and that. Well, Yeshua, in regards of the cross, Yeshua, on the tree, when he hung on the tree, he was taking upon himself the sins, that's the transgressions of the Torah, the law of God, upon himself. He didn't abolish the law. He took upon himself the sins of the world. So anyway, and of course we know from, I think it's one of the letters of John that it says, if, we should walk as he walked, or we should do as he did. Well, Yeshua was a Torah-keeping Jew that kept to the festivals found in the Bible, not all these Roman pagan traditions that we're keeping now, and so forward, So now he was breaking all the traditions of the elders, in regards of Judaism, and they got pretty pissed at him, to say the least. But that was not in regards of breaking the law of Moses. That was in regards of breaking all these man-made bullshit laws that they still have today. And of course, we, the Christians, have a huge amount of man-made insanity as well, coming from Rome. Pretty much, it's always pushed from Rome, it's very sad. Anyway, that's another topic, I guess. By the way, who went to Rome? Paul went to Rome, didn't he? Paulus went to Rome, right? We know that in regards to the book of Acts. It actually ends with Paulus being in Rome. So anyway, I'll not say too much, but as far as it goes for me, I think he was the first so-called pope in some sense. Anyway, so he goes on that again, the Antichrist in our days in regards of the office and seat of the papacy can speak very Christian-like, right? Of course, if you know history, you really have to be careful because this is a diabolical system working for Satan. Satan has given the power, the dominion, and so forward, and rule to this office, okay? So the Antichrist is in regards of the papacy, as I call it, the great stinking poop, that unholy faker. Isn't it interesting that Yeshua would say that there's only one Father and he is in the heavens and we shouldn't call anyone on earth Father? And what does the Antichrist do? Yeah, so-called Holy Father, right? Everything is holy according, in regards to that religion, apparently. But you just put a U and an N in front of it and you got it. Anyway, so here we go with the 4 commandments again. That you abstain from what is offered to idols and blood and what is strangled and whoring and so forward. I don't know what the E is in regards to Acts 15:20. Okay, they would have been nice if they also had put the other one in. I think it's Acts 17 or maybe further. But Paul is coming back and we'll just see here. Go one being master. So again, in regards of witnessing, in regards of Jesus Christ, Paul is absolutely, he's really, he's a clever, deceptive guy, but again, Satan is very smart and clever as well, right? Anyway, but in regards of Yeshua, he's absolutely a great testimony in regards to who Yeshua is, that Yeshua is God, and that he is the Messiah and so forward. But he's leading people into lawlessness. What did Jesus do? He did the exact opposite. Yeshua was trying to lead people to the law, to try to, in regards of reading the Gospels, the books of the Gospel, because there's one Gospel, and of course that's actually, as far as I know, in regards to the New Testament, there's actually 2 Gospels, both in the name of Yeshua, but one is with the law and one is without the law, But anyway, the thing is, you begin to read the books of the Gospel, and you get hit. You figure out that you're not so good a person. And why? Because the law. The law is hitting you. He's using the law. He's using I call it like that. It's a two-edged. The word is a two-edged sword. One side is in regards of the law, and the other side is mercy. So you figure out that, hey, I'm not such a good person actually. And then, of course, you're looking for a savior, right? Because why would you look for a savior if you think you're a good person? If you think I'm a pretty good person, that's no problem with me, Well, why would you need Jesus then, or Yeshua? In regards of the sacrifice of the Passover lamb and the living bread from the heavens that was broken on the tree and all that, and his wine poured out for the sins of the world. Why would you need that if you do not understand that you a sinner, that you are a transgressor of God's law. Anyway, so we see both things being used. For example, there's one that comes to Yeshua and say, "What shall I do to inherit everlasting life?" What does Yeshua tell him? Does he say, just believe, he refers him to the law, right? So he gives like a couple, like 6 commandments of the law, of the 10 commandments, right? And of course, in regards to the law, what is the highest commandment of the law? To love God, right? With all your soul, all your being, all your heart, and all your, so forward, So, who is Jesus? Who is Yeshua? Well, he's God, right? Well, I don't know if everybody have understood that, but he's God. So, to fulfill the first and highest commandment of the law, well, you would believe in Yeshua, right? You wouldn't reject him, you wouldn't hate him, you would love him. You would love him and you would believe in him and so forward, and you wouldn't, anyway. And that will also, of course, also fulfill the second commandment that is equal to it in regards of, in regards of loving your neighbor, because you're standing for truth. So other people out there can be led to the same truth, so it's and then when people say, in regards of the whole law is fulfilled, the 2 commandments, the law hangs on those 2 commandments. Like if you do not commit adultery, like Joseph, he didn't want to sin against God. So he was showing he loved God. So he fulfilled the first and highest commandment by not committing adultery because he didn't want to sin against God. And the second commandment that the law hangs on in regards of loving your neighbor, he fulfilled by not committing adultery with his master's wife, in regards of the house, the master of the house. You see, so he fulfilled 2 commandments by not breaking the law of adultery. So anyway, and that you can take, it's just anyway. I know people will try to, whatever. Let's see if we can find still where Paul is coming back. It's easier with my Danish version because I have all these things in here and there, and I can't remember. I'm not so good to in regards of Acts this and that, and chapter this and that, because the chapters are, I don't really. I have some problems in regards to those chapters things. Sometimes they are just put in a bad place. And they are put in the Bible later on. And sometimes you just think that the guy that putting these chapters in must have been drinking a huge amount of wine or something like that. Anyway, so maybe it's we're getting close, I think. That's actually Paul saying, "For I know this, that after my departure, savages wolves shall come in among you, not sparing the flock." The question is, and he's talking to the people from Ephesus, I think, if I remember correctly. The question is because they end up rejecting him according to the last letter from Paul. As you know, all Asia has left me. The question is, who was actually the savages wolves? Who was it actually? Because we have 2 groups, and we can see in Paul's letters that he's attacking those so-called, as he called them, so-called pillars, Okay, those 3 people that you mentioned, like Peter, James, and John. If I remember correctly, that was the 3 that he mentions in regards to the pillars. They actually walked with Jesus. They knew Jesus, personally and so forward. So, I would consider them pretty huge pillars, I wouldn't consider them, I would consider them pretty, pillars. Yeah. Anyway, but we see he's belittling the real, the disciples and all that. So I really, and then the more you dig into it and all that, the more you unlock, and the more you see how much damage he actually has done. Why are Christians keeping pagan festivals? Well, because of Paul. Why are they keeping Sunday instead of Saturday? Well, because of Paul. Because Paul says it doesn't matter and this and that, right? Why are they eating things, sacrificed to false gods? Well, because of Paul. They don't think there's any problem with it. with that? Well, because Paul says it doesn't really matter because we have this knowledge, right? And this understanding and all that. But if some of these weak ones comes from Jerusalem, just don't eat it, Not because of your own sake, because of their sake, because he may, give me it's just utter hypocritical. And of course, anyway, here we go. So I think, here Paul is coming back here. And and when they have heard it, they praised the master, and they said to him, "You see, brother," that's in regards to Paul, "how many thousands of Jews, Yehudim, there are who have believed." So there are what? Thousand. I actually think some translations actually think it was 10 times 10. I can't. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's in regards of some translations where they. Let's see if we can actually find compare maybe. See some of how they take it myriads, because in regards to there's some differences in regards to the myriad. How many it actually is. Is it 10,000 or thousands we're talking about? But anyway, whatever the case, let's just skip that in some sense. Oh, maybe I could just, let's just, but anyway, I do wonder why I don't have all, anyway, okay, getting back to it. So, what the point is here, these are the first Christians, okay? These are, these are the first believers, and it's called the way. We know that because of the book of Acts, which pretty much is mostly about Paul, it actually takes the focus of the church, and then it takes the focus from the church and the disciples over to focusing on Paul. And which is kind of interesting, but even when it takes this turn, from the disciples to Paul, you can still extract a lot of information from it. For example, that that the sect of the Jews in regards of was called the Way. They were following the way. They were called the Way, and I guess that makes sense. The way, the way of what? Well, the narrow way in regards of God. We have in the scriptures where they talk about there's there's two ways: the broad way that leads to destruction, and then the narrow way and all that. So it's just a kind of catching the way, and they were called the Nazarenes and so forward. But anyway, so we get this information from, for example, from the book of Acts, which is, so there's some good information out there. Just be careful in regards of Paulus. That's the thing is, I could just lie and tell people, and go along to get along and all that. But I see some serious issues with Paulus. And so I have to stand for what I see as truth, But anyway, if you want to look into in regards of all Asia rejected Paul, that's 2 Timothy 1:15, and then you can go to Revelation chapter 2 verse 2. That is in regards of Yeshua in regards of Ephesus. And who was in Ephesus? Paulus was in Ephesus teaching for 2 or 3 years. Anyway, according to what we have in the New Testament. And when they heard it, and again, why would all Asia leave Paul? Why would they? They have the Apostle John around, Yohanan, we know that, and the Apostle Philip as well. They had around in that area, and probably a lot of other disciples of the Nazarenes and all that in that area. So why would they reject Paulus? Why would they reject him? Well, I think maybe because they found out there was something going on, and I think Yeshua was actually, clapping the shoulder of the Ephesians and telling them, "Hey, good job," in regards of you. There were some apostles, there's something that has to be tested. Someone had to be tested. They were deceptive. They were sleek. They was, they were wolves in sheep clothing that, if possible, could deceive the elect, right? So anyway, Yeshua warned us, take all the puzzle pieces. He even told us that Satan would come and sow the bad seeds after he had been here. After Yeshua had been sowing the good eatable weed, and an enemy, and that enemy is Satan, would sow the bad seeds. So anyway, so shouldn't we expect that actually to happen? Yeah, of course. And Yeshua is saying they're growing up in the field until the harvest, right? The harvest is yet future. So should we expect to see both in the world? Yep, we should. Is that what we see in the world? Yep, it is. Anyway, and when they heard it, they praised the master, and they said to him, "You see, brother, how many thousands of Jews there are who have believed, and all are ardent." That might be they are zealous. They are on fire. For what? For the Torah. Isn't that interesting that the first disciples, apostles, and all that didn't really get the memo that the law was abolished? Just think about it. Now, I know Paul, you can give me a flip a Paul might this and Paul might that. But according to this book, the first disciples, that would be the Nazarenes, and we also have historical sources on this. In the 4th century, the Nazarenes are still keeping the law of Moses. That's one of the reasons why that's the main reason why they're stamped as heretics. Isn't it interesting that the Romanizers would stamp the Nazarenes as heretics? The first group of Christians stamped as heretics. Was it because they didn't believe in Jesus? No. Was it because they didn't believe he was born of a virgin? No. Was it because they didn't believe he was God? No. So what was the reason? Why were the Nazarenes called heretics? Why were they stamped as heretics in the 4th century? Well, because they thought we should still keep the law of Moses. Oh, okay. So later, they continue to still, keep the law of Moses and still believe that. Of course, we have the Ebionites as well, but the Ebionites have a lot of issues. They were not the original group. The Ebionites, as far as I know, came out of the Nazarene group. So that was another primarily Jewish sect that came out of the Nazarenes. That's what they were called. A sect. Any case. Yeah. And of course, the Ebionites didn't believe that Jesus was God, and they didn't believe he was, a virgin birth. They didn't believe in that, and they, so they had their issues, and you can actually see when they're talking about Jews and all that, you can see by their characteristics in regards to what they believe, if it's actually the Nazarenes or the Ebionites. Anyway, but the Ebionites rejected Paul, we know for sure. I think we have pretty solid information on that. But it also seems like the Nazarenes actually seem to have rejected Paul. We do have some sources saying that. I've been reading in the past and all that. And we do have sources that, point in that direction, that the Nazarenes might actually have rejected Paul as an apostle. But anyway. And when they heard it, they praised the master, and they said to him, "You see, brother, how many thousands of Jews there are who have believed." So they have believed in the Messiah in regard. That's why they were hated by the Jews. They were Jews, but the Jews, keeping to Judaism in regards to all that man-made bullshit and all that, hated these people. So not only did the Romanizers, the so-called Christian Romanizers, they hated the Jews because they kept the law. So there's like, oh, they're just Jews, right? They're just utterly Jews. Apparently it's a bad thing to have something in regards to, Jewish, things, because I guess Yeshua wasn't a Jew, or, oh yeah, he was a Jew. Oh, that's true, he was a Jew. So what's bad actually in regards to Judaizing? Are we not called to be disciples of the Master? And the Master was a Jew, and he kept to the law of Moses. So what's bad with Judaizing? I would think it actually would be very bad Romanizing, right? That would be a serious thing. That's, of course, it's turned upside down. Satan has his way and all that. And of course, in regards to Judaizers and all that, that's a term that seemed to be coined by Paul, and he saw the beginning in regards of cursing people. Of course, the Roman Catholic Church loves to curse people, right? I'm accursed on so many levels. So I'm a heretic, and it's okay to kill me, apparently, according to the Roman maniac institution of diabolical wickedness. Yeah, anyway, so... And when they heard it, they praised the master, and they said to him, saying to Paul, you see, brother, how many thousand of Jews or Yehudim there are who have believed, and all are ardent or zealous on fire for the Torah. We're not talking about the Roman Antichrist laws here. We are talking about the 5 books of Moses. The 5 books of Moses, the written Torah. Anyway, so, let's see here. So there's many thousands of Jews believing in Jesus as the Messiah. And again, we knew from Jewish sources that there was conflicts and so forward, and they burned their documents and all that, and there was apparently, the name of God was apparently in these documents. They were called the Minim, and apparently the Jews, in regards to still Judaism and all that, they apparently thought that the Minim was worse than the Gentiles, because the Minim have had the truth as they saw it in regards to Judaism and all that, and had now become a believer in a so-called false, Messiah, as they perceived it. Now, of course, if we actually go into history and see how many, different false messiahs the Jews actually have believed, and down through the ages, it's just incredible. Anyway, what's it called? Cockbach is one, what's it called? I can't even remember the name. Anyway, and I was getting some information on another one from 1666. I think I actually have studied a little before. He turned into a Muslim, apparently, or Mohammedan. I don't like that use the word Muslim. I think it's a Mohammedan, but he turned, he was false converted. Either you convert to Mohammedanism or you get your head chopped off. And apparently he he didn't. But anyway, that's one of the false messiahs that. And of course, in regards, if you go to Israel, there will still be people promoting different messiahs. That's of course a false, because Yeshua was the true one. Anyway. And I think I actually still have some documentation hidden away from my Israeli trip and all that in regards to some of them. But anyway, and when they heard, I think I have 2 cards still in regards to, but the thing is I don't read Hebrew, but of course maybe Google can help in regards to translate the names in regard to, I don't know. But there's a lot of Hebrew documents, or at least a good amount of Hebrew documents that I just don't... I don't know what it says, but anyway. And when they heard it, they praised the master, and they said to him, you see, brother, how many thousands of Yehudim or Jews there are who have believed. They believed in the Messiah, and all are ardent for the Torah. They're all zealous and on fire for the Torah. Didn't Yeshua actually say that Moses wrote about him? So if Yeshua, who is God, says that Moses wrote about him, should we expect Moses to actually have been writing about Yeshua, if Yeshua says so? I think we should, right? And we better have a look, anyway. And of course, Yeshua talks about, you won't come to me, but you study the scriptures and all that, but the scriptures are talking about him who, that actually can give life and all that. So Yeshua is and it's the most important thing in regards. And of course, it is the highest commandment to love God, right? And the Jews was saying they love God, and yet they executed him, what a testimony. Yeah, we love God. Yeah, he's just hanging on the tree, Yeah, it's just... anyway, so and Yeshua is talking about that as well. If you love God, you would love me, because I came from him. Or came from God. It was his Father that sent him into the world. Anyway, so just by this little thing, we already know that the first believers were zealous for the Torah. We also have sources talking about, the prologues of Marcion talks about and he's looking at it from he's a Pauline Christian. He had collected all Paul's letters and all that, or at least a lot of Paul's letters, and that was pretty much his Bible. And then he used a little of the book of Luke and all that. So he's just totally Pauline Christian, and we have two. I know of two sources that wrote against him. One of them is Tertullian, and I think we actually have his writings on that. And the other one that I would really have loved to have was Melito. Melito apparently also wrote against Marcion in regards to these things, and I would have loved to, because Melito is in the right area, in regards to the area who rejected Paul. Or Paulus. So I do, I would have wished I just had more information, and I just a little snippet here and a little snippet there and here, and just so Satan is very good to censor things, and delete things and all that. That doesn't really compute with him, and we know Melito wrote a lot of books that was apparently pretty popular as far as I can see, and yet it seems like the Romanizers didn't like it, maybe because Melito had too much truth. And he also believed in a 1,000-year millennium, as others also have believed. But of course, now you are anathematized, you are cursed, according to, the Romanizers and all that. And, but what do I care about the Romanizers? They can, they can curse away as much as they want. I don't really care, doesn't really, as long as I'm standing on the truth as best to my ability, it doesn't really, but of course I am a legal target for getting killed, and who knows, you never know when that will, but, that of course in regards of Jehovah, in regards of, being the shield, anyway, and when they heard it, they praised the master, and they said to him, we already read that, okay. So you get it, the first believers, the first Christians, now of course they were not called Christians, but Christians pretty much just means, in regards of Christ means the anointed, in regards to the Messiah and so forward, and they were called Christians in regards to the Greek and all that, in regards of the how do you say that in plural? Anointed is singular. How do you say that in plural? The anointers? The anointers. I don't know. Whatever. But but anyway, they're the first believers in Jesus. And so we have the first group of believers in Yeshua, the mother congregation. And what do they believe? That we still should, the Torah still stands. Apparently they didn't get the memo from Yeshua that the law is abolished. Right? Doesn't seem so, does it? Nope. Anyway, so what does James say to Paul according to this? But they have been informed, so these Jews that are zealous and on fire for the Torah, that will be the law of Moses. But they have been informed about you, that you teach all the Jews, or the Yehudim, who are among the nations to forsake Moshe, or Moses, saying not to circumcise the children, nor to walk according to the practices. I don't know in regards to the word of practices, what word is actually behind that. Let's see here. If we can find the word customs. It would also be nice to the custom, the usage prescribed by law, institution, prescription, right. I would think it would still be considered in regards to the law of Moses, not in regards of the law of, not in regards of these man-made laws and all that. Yeshua was breaking them, pretty much, it seems like all day, Of course, we don't have everything that he did, but it seems like he was, at every possible chance that every possible chance that he had, he was breaking them, And he was pissing them off. They were totally pissed, The Jews were totally pissed at him. Those leaders say, hey, you're this and that. He's breaking this and breaking that and breaking. Well, it's not found in the Torah. He was breaking the man-made laws. Again, let's see what the Aramaic actually says. See if we can get the Aramaic. That might be, but I'm not sure if. Let's see here. Okay, if we can get the word here. Okay, actually, circumcise their sons, and not by the custom of the law they should walk. Okay. How does he translate that in regards of, let's see here. Okay, so this is the Aramaic. We also have the Hebrew, which is very interesting. It seems like the Hebrew has been found in regards of some of these Gospels. And of course, again, typically the scholars are hiding it away in some sense. They are, they want to look into the things and not really just, Personally, I think the information, when you find something, hey, scan it and put it out in the internet. So think about the Dead Sea Scrolls, how long it took to actually get them out to the public. And that was because of one single man that thought that it should be public. And he broke the thing, it took a long time to get these Dead Sea Scrolls out in the public. That is utter bullshit, If, in our days of information, you want to get the information out to the public. You have the you have the scrolls and all that. Scan them, get them out to the public. All that bullshit of this and that. If the scholars want to fix and look into the things, hey, sure. But get the information out to the public so others can look into the information. But no. They have a way of, you're not, this and that. This is, anyway. Of course, we also have the Waldensian Bibles that is apparently not in the Bible programs. And at least as I understand, there should have been 6 Waldensian Bibles. And, apparently it's only, high-level people that have access to these. That's just bullshit. Scan the books, out with them, so we, the Christians, that are interested in the things, can do study for ourselves, so we can figure out this and that. But no, there's so much focus on, the other manuscripts that they have. This I can't remember, but anyway, it's bullshit. It's utter bullshit. I think it's utter bullshit. Anyway, so let's see. But it has been told to them that you, Paulus, teach all the Jews who are among the Gentiles to separate from Moses, while you say they should not circumcise their sons, and that they should not walk by the custom of the law. Now, what law? That's actually pretty more clear. So what? And that makes pretty good sense. So what law would it be? Of course, the law of Moses. Of course. And here we go in regards of Judea who have believed, and they are all sellers of the law. All sellers, thousands of Jews in Judea who have believed and are what? All sellers of the law. So is the law done away? Not according to the first Christians, Not according to the first believers. It's just, it's bullshit if anyone says the law is done away with and all that. And you see the first group of Christians actually keeping the law, and you say the law is abolished. Why would the first Christians that is closest to the source then still keep the, Did they get it wrong? I don't think so. Because these people walked with Jesus, they heard Jesus, they ate with Jesus, they were very close to his, to him, So they would know what he was teaching. If he had been teaching that the law would be abolished and all that, I think they would know. Okay, anyway. So, of course, if Satan can get us away from the law, the thing is, if we don't have the scriptures, it's so easy to get deceived, in regards of the pagan holidays that that the world is keeping. Nothing to do with the Bible. How do you figure out it's nothing to do with the Bible? Well, you look in the Torah, right? You figure out that God has his own festivals, and holy days that are appointed times and all that we might actually be able to learn something about from, if we actually kept them and knew about them and all that. Also in regards of evolution, why is it that 82% of the Danish people believe in evolution when they say they are a Christian nation and all that? Well, that's, it's a pagan, evolution is paganism. It's a satanic pagan lie. It's a deception. You can follow it back to India long, long before Darwin made it popular in the West. Long, way back. Anyway, it's a pagan idea. It's a pagan doctrine. So why would any Christian believe that? And if we're saying that we are a Christian nation, maybe we should repent, actually turn around. Anyway, if you read the first two pages of the Bible, pretty much in regards to the creation story, and you have first chapter, which is the whole of the first chapter and a little more than of the second chapter. Again, the person that put these chapters in sometimes is outrageous. Anyway. So just remember that you have the 7th day as well, and then another thing begins. And of course, if you actually look in the Hebrew, you can see that the Jews actually put a stop at the right place. Anyway, and they are informed of thee that thou teachest all the Jews which are among the Gentiles to forsake Moses. So what is Yaakov saying? That he's teaching to the Jews to forsake Moses? There couldn't be anything about that, right? There couldn't be anything in regards of him, teaching to forsake Moses. So it is pretty clear from the information that we get that the head of the church in Jerusalem, or the congregation in Jerusalem, did not think that that the law was done away. So anyway. So all the Jews which are among the Gentiles to forsake Moses, saying that they ought not to circumcise their children, neither to walk after the customs, and that would be of the law, of the law of Moses. So what is it? Apparently Yaakov is somewhat concerned, or maybe he's actually testing Paul. I'm not sure. But it is interesting how he, but again, we don't have enough information really to, at least I haven't found, and that might be, there's a lot of information that is actually not translated into English yet. And there's a lot of documents out there for sure. It's a huge amount of material out there. Anyway, but still, some of the things that I would really, so many times when I'm like, oh, I really want to read from that guy, it's like everything gone pretty much. Okay, I really want to read. Oh, everything gone. Okay, I really everything gone. So, and I think that it might have something to do that it might actually expose the wicked Roman Catholic institution. Now, as the Protestants did when they actually, began to read the Bible again, and because Rome didn't want them to read the Bible, and they were only allowed to have them in Latin and all that. But of course, Martin Luther translated the Bible into German, and you have Tyndale, and you have Zwingli before that translates the Latin into English. Tyndale, I think, it translates the Greek and the Hebrew. And we have Luther. I'm not sure what Luther actually used, but I guess he must have used the Hebrew and the Greek received text as well. I'm not entirely sure, but I would think he would probably have. And of course, we have the Waldensians as well. As I understand it, the Protestant had, I think it was six Waldensians Bibles at their disposal. That was there I think there was a French translation or something like that from one of the Waldensian Bibles. Now I don't read French and all that, but that would be a very interesting translation to read to see if there was any, But yeah, I think that was a French translation that was in regards of. So anyway, so again, there's a lot of things to dig into, and we just need more people actually waking up and beginning to dig into the thing is the information is out there. We just need to refine the things in some sense, and we can just so we can make it easier for others to quickly get on the wagon and figure things out. So anyway, because there's a lot of liars and deceivers out there, Satan has his prophets out there doing their thing. Anyway. So, and they are informed of thee that thou teachest all the Jews which are among the... Okay, we already read that. I actually need to pee, so I'll just... 2 seconds. I'm a little more than 2 seconds. Actually, give me 2 minutes. I should be able to do it in 2 minutes. 2 seconds. 2 minutes. Oh. It's a saying, Great. It is, I guess I bought, 5 cucumbers, and apparently I ate them all very quickly. So, all the water that is in the cucumber pretty much, is coming out again. So at least I should actually be pretty, I'm still feeling dry in regards of my lips and all that. But anyway, and they are informed of thee that thou teachest all the Jews which are among the Gentiles to forsake Moses, saying that they ought not to circumcise their children, neither to walk after the customs. And again, if we look at the Aramaic, it seems to talk about the customs of the law in regards of what is written in the law of Moses. So, what is it therefore? Question. So James seems to be concerned in regards of Paul in regards to this, that these Jews have heard these things. And the question is, it's hard to know what was, it's nearly 2,000 years ago, right? So it's a little hard to, and we have lost a lot of material, as I said. So I would have loved to dig into a lot of material from the place of Asia Minor, because the Asia Minor was, really the big place that really fought Rome in regard. You see the Passover conflict in regards of Easter and Passover, and Rome, in some sense wins out, But apparently they kept Passover in Asia Minor. I think, as far as I can see, they kept all the festivals. I think I had I think I read something in regards of keeping the Sukkot or something. I'm not. That was something else that it seems like, and overall, the things that I've read, it's as far as I can see, they kept all of these festivals, So if they kept all of these festivals, and Christians will say, oh, you lose salvation if you try to do that and this and that. Well, that would be utter bullshit, because we know that, as far as I can see, that they actually kept it in Asia Minor. Now, one of the things that we know was a big, the one thing that we know most about is in regards to the conflict of Passover and Easter. We have a good amount of sources on that conflict going on and so forward, and Rome winning out. And yet, even after Rome wins out at the Nicene Council, we see that John Chrysostom is still speaking against people that actually keeps these festivals. So apparently, someone is not in agreement with Rome. Anyway. And the letter from Polygratus to Bishop Victor is a wonderful letter that shows different things, at least 4 things. I think it shows the letter. It's a wonderful little letter from Asia Minor to Victor in Rome. It's a wonderful letter. See here. What is it therefore the multitude must needs come together, for they will hear that thou art come do therefore this that we okay. So apparently he seems to be worried that the Jews that are Christians, becoming believers in Yeshua, which are zealous for the law, they will at some point hear that he has come, and thereby apparently there might be something problems apparently. So, and that of course is interesting. Why would that be? We're talking about Jewish believers in Yeshua. What is actually, there must be something going on here. But anyway, what is it therefore? Question mark. The multitude must needs come together, for they will hear that thou art come. Okay, so do therefore this, I guess, therefore the multitude must needs come together, for they will hear that thou art come. So what is it therefore, question mark? The multitude, I wonder in regards to what the Aramaic says here, and again it would be, I don't know if we actually have the Hebrew in regards, it's today that actually we have another show in regards of Michael Rood, and having this guy on in regards of, I do have some, there's some things that, but Michael Rood has a lot of goodies, but as usual, you eat the meat and spit out the bones, you have to remember, you're using, every different people have different forces and strengths, and so for example, you can see like Kent Hovind. Kent Hovind is wonderful in regards of creation and evolution. That's he's so good at that. Well, there are other things where I absolutely think he has some problems, and it seems to that will always be something that one can find of an issue. The thing is, are we trying the best that we can in regards to what truth has been given us? That I think that's the important thing. To whatever level we are on, or whatever field that we are, that we have strength in and all that, and use it for God, and use it to stand for the truth, and we might make mistakes, but again, at least if we try the best, and we might find out, I made a mistake there, I need to repent, I need to turn around. For example, I was led into believing that in regards of the Mohammedans, in regards of prophecy and all that, in regards of away from who the Antichrist was and all that bullshit, but if we actually I figured out over time that I was absolutely wrong. I was in some sense promoting this for a time on my Facebook. I believed that this was the truth, and the more I read the Bible and began to understand it from the Bible from a biblical perspective, I figured out that and later on I found out he was a Roman Catholic. Then it begins to make sense, and all. So anyway, because the Antichrist, as all Protestants in the past knew this as like second nature. They all knew who the Antichrist was, and the Antichrist was the seat and the office of the papacy. So anyway, so now two things that are important in this life, I think, is in regards of know who Jesus Christ really is, because there's many false versions. The two most important versions that are on the market is in the cookie Jesus of the Roman Catholics, and the only prophet version of the Mohammedans. And but there's many other versions, but I think they are the two most most what should we say, popular versions, and deceptive versions. And then of course the second thing is to figure out who the Antichrist is, because you don't want to be deceived by the Antichrist. Anyway, so what is it therefore? The multitude must needs come together, for they will hear that thou art come. Let's see what the Aramaic says here. Because therefore is heard this to them that have come here. Again, I still feel it's like a little hard to actually understand what totally is being said here. Maybe see here if we can go to this one. Therefore, because this has been heard by them they have come here. Okay. So let's see. But it has been told them that, again, if we have this in a Hebrew version, it seems like we have some I think we actually have all the Gospels in Hebrew. Apparently, according to the source that is on Michael Root's show, that, and we know we have the Gospel of Matthew in regards of Hebrew, that there's multiple Hebrew manuscripts in regard to the book of Matthew in Hebrew. Now, apparently there seems to have been, but this guy has done research in regards. I knew, when I read in regards to the Nazarenes, they went to Pella and all that, and then I really couldn't figure out where they then, overall. But yeah, apparently he seems to have tracked some information that seems to be leading some of these Nazarenes to, was it Spain or something like that? In any case, that's very interesting. So he says that the Hebrew versions was never lost. We just didn't know about it. So that's very interesting to have something. We have the Aramaic, we have the Greek, and we apparently seems to have the Hebrew as well. That's very interesting. And we can use all the sources that we have to look into the things and just, get closer to, so yeah, it's very interesting. I think it's very, I'm looking for, I think it's like 2:00 in the night when the show runs. Sadly, it's very late, but, looking forward to it for sure. And I've looked into, he has a book as well, and that would probably be a very interesting book to read, but there's so much one wants to read and all that. So anyway, but it has been told them that you teach all the Jews who are among the Gentiles to separate from Moses, while you say that they should not circumcise their sons and that they should not walk by the custom of the law. Now, of course, Paul doesn't seem to think that he actually is under the law, but, he's, I guess, somewhat of a hypocrite, because he's like a Jew for the Jews and a Gentile for the Gentile, right? But anyway, therefore, because this has been heard by them, they have come here. I guess that makes more sense. So therefore, because this has been heard by them, they have come here. Okay. So I guess that might make a little more sense. I'm not entirely sure, but do what we tell you. We have 4 men who have vowed to purify themselves. Now, in regards of a vow, as I understand it, we shouldn't take any oath. But anyway, to purify themselves, right? Take them and go be purified with them. So Paul is to be purified, and they are to be purified. I guess Paul might still be in regards of his. He was doing something in regards of the. In regards of that thing. What is it called? I can't remember. In regards of, where you shave your head and all that. I think he actually was. So maybe he's still in that thing. I don't know. But anyway, do what we tell you. We have 4 men who have vowed to purify themselves. Take them and go be purified with them, and pay the cost with them to shave their heads. And it will be known to everyone that whatever was spoken about you is false, and that you fulfill and keep the law. So what is James saying? Yaakov saying to Paul, of course you're keeping the law, right, Paul? It's pretty clear that as Yaakov, is the brother of Jesus, who knew Jesus, firsthand, Paul, pretty, never, of course he saw this vision out in the desert and all that, but who knows what he actually did see and so forth. We have 4 different accounts. We have 4 accounts, and there's some differences in the accounts, and, it's just, anyway. So, and apparently others in the first century had issues and was questioning Paul. So anyway, and it will be known to everyone that whatever was spoken about you is false, and that you fulfill and keep the law. So what is the concern of James? Well, that, of course you're keeping the law, right, Paul? It couldn't be anything in regards of you leading Jews away from the law and the customs and all that. Couldn't be anything to do, there couldn't be anything in regards of that. Of course not, of course not. So, if you could do this to show that you are fulfilling and keeping the law. To show others that you are actually doing that. So I still do wonder where he got the money from, but because one of the places, I think when he's talking to the king or something like that, he's saying, I came down to Jerusalem with money and so forward and all of that. So I do wonder what happened with those money, because we don't really have information about that as far as but again, we see to have some historical things that actually talks about that the Nazarenes actually ended up rejecting Paul. So we know that the Ebionites hated Paul, or what do we call it? They rejected Paul, and that's pretty clear. I think we have pretty good, clear evidence for that. It's a little harder with the Nazarenes, but it does seem like they actually. And of course, if the Nazarenes would also be in the area of Asia Minor, like, the Apostle John and Apostle Philip and all that. So anyway, so it says, but concerning those who believe among the Gentiles, we have written they would keep themselves from what is sacrificed, from fornication, from strangled things, and from blood. So here we see these 4 things that the Gentiles, and one of the places talk about necessary commandments. So anyway, as far as I can see, these commandments are necessary commandments for the Gentiles, and then they were to grow in the law. In regards of Moses. Moses is read every Sabbath, right? In the meeting house. So. You would expect the new disciples of Jesus to maybe pick up on more and more things, right? So anyway, and listen to the word of God, so they wouldn't be deceived by Satan, right? And anyway, then Paul. The problem is that we seem to me be missing information from the Nazarene group, or the Ebionites for that matter. We don't have that. Of course, we have the books of the gospel, but most of the the New Testament is just mostly about Paul. It's just so I would like to know more about the Nazarenes. Anyway. Any case. Then Paulus took those men, and the next day was purified with them, and they entered and went to the temple, showing them the fulfillment of the days of purification, until an offering was offered by each one of them. So he's paying for 5 people, he's paying for 4 people, including himself. And according to the Bible, that seems to be pretty pricey. So again, where he's getting his money from, I have no idea. But anyway. And when the 7th day arrived, the Jews from Asia, so this is Jews from Asia, that's the area that rejected Paul. So, and when the 7th day arrived, Jews from Asia, I'm sure, what does the King James say here? Let's see here. Jews which were of Asia. Interesting. When they saw him in the temple, stirred up all the people and laid hands on him. So the Jews in Asia Minor apparently, had some issues with Paul. And of course the question is, what issues did they have, See, the Jews of Asia saw him in the temple, and they incited all the people against him, and they laid hands upon him. The question is, are these Jews of Asia actually Christians? Are they believers? Are these Jews believers? Christian believers? I don't know. Because again, with up here they talked about that. But it has been told them that you teach all the Jews who are among the Gentiles to separate from Moses. Well, let's see here. So, and when they heard, they praised God and said to him, you see, our brother, how many tens of thousands, here we go with the tens of thousands, not thousand, but tens of thousands in the OANT. So again, that's some, and I know the Jewish guy that also made an Aramaic translation also talks about this. But anyway, a lot of Jews anyway actually seem to have believed in Yeshua. So anyway, you see, our brother, how many tens of thousands are in Judea who have believed, and they are all zealous of the law. But it has been told them that you teach all the Jews who are among the Gentiles to separate from Moses, while you say that they should not circumcise their sons, and that they should not walk by the custom of the law. So what apparently they have heard is that, again, we've pretty much been through that, right? Seemingly, they're going some, I don't know if it's the truth or rumors, We don't have all the information, right? We have the letters of Paul, and of course we can reconstruct some of the things, but, it's nearly 2,000 years ago, anyway. And therefore, because this has been heard by them, they have come here. So therefore, because this has been heard by them, they have come here. Okay, so they have come to Jerusalem, or what? But it has been told them, but isn't he talking about in regards of the... okay. Therefore, because this has been heard by them, they have come here. Do what we tell you. We have 4 men who have vowed to purify themselves. Take them and go to be purified with them, and pay the cost with them to shave their heads. And it will be known to everyone that whatever was spoken about you is false. So again, that you fulfill and keep the law. So again, the first Christians, still, expect Paul to keep the law. And then it goes on in regards to the Gentiles of the 4 commandments. But again, if we actually look in one of Paulus' letters, he talks about that, the only thing that actually in regards of collecting money and all that, but they didn't really need to say that and all that. He's pretty much just forgetting the 4 commandments that they got in regards to the book of Acts. So if that is the case, he's directly lying, If the puzzle pieces that are putting together, if I've done that correctly, he's actually lying. He's saying, oh well, they just said to collect money and all that, and then he forgets all the 4 commandments that was actually in regards to the book of Acts, right? The letter in regards of these 4 commandments, which is actually commandments found in the law. So. Which was said to be necessary, one of the places. Anyway, and when the 7th day arrived, the Jews of Asia saw him in the temple, and they incited all the people against him, and they laid hands upon him. So apparently the Jews of Asia. So, and I don't know if they are believers in Jesus or not, but they see him, and apparently they are pretty angry, I guess. So let's see what they say. As they appealed, and they were saying, men, sons of Israel, help. This is the man who opposes our people, teaching in every place against the law and against this place. Now, so this must be in regards of what they, what the problem, and of course, Paul is twisting this, when you have the Pharisees and the Sadducees, he knows that, he's pretty clever, but it's, he's saying why, he's saying, I'm persecuted because I believe in the resurrection of the dead or something like that. And then the Sadducees and the Pharisees go totally, against each other, right? If it had been Jesus, standing there, both of these groups would be against Jesus. They would be collected together against him. But anyway, but it doesn't seem to be, when you see all these accounts, what Paul is telling, this and that, and it's like, something weird seems to be going on. It's very slick, So as they appealed, and they were saying, men, sons of Israel, help. This is the man who opposes our people, teaching in every place against the law. So this is the thing. this is the problem. It's not in regards to the resurrection, is it? In regards to the dead and all that. This is in regards to teaching in every place against the law and against this place. So against the law, that would be the Torah. And he also has brought an Aramean into the temple and has defiled the holy place. Now, the second thing here, I don't think actually was true, you know. I don't think he had, you know, because it goes on to say, for they had seen Trophimaeus the Ephesian with him before in the city, and they were assuming that he had entered the temple with Paulus. So what they assume, and again, it doesn't really say if it's, it doesn't really say directly if it's not true, but, you know, it just sounds from the text that, you know, this is, they assumed something. They didn't really see Trophimaeus, the Ephesian. They didn't see him, but they assumed that he had entered the temple with Paulus, you know. But you know, so apparently they must not have seen the guy, you know. So again, that might have been a wrong assumption on their behalf. But in regards of what the other thing, this is in regards of, you know, the charge that they give according to the book of Acts. This is the man who opposes our people, teaching in every place against the law. So what is the charges? That he's teaching in every place against the law, that is the law of Moses, and against this place. So apparently they, and these people are from Asia, apparently, and they apparently had understood that Paulus is teaching against the law. So anyway, so they are pretty angry, pretty much. And that's the thing, that's also one of the things in regards to the Jews. When Jews see Christians and they look at Christians, well, Christians are keeping all these pagan traditions, yet they say that Jesus is the Jewish Messiah. And again, we have the Hebrew sources in regards of where they actually talk about sending Paulus, infiltrating the Christians so they can actually get them away from Judaism. Because there's a great conflict according to the document of Toldut Yeshua, Toldut Yeshu, and it's it seems like it's a document of damage control. You know, they're actually verifying that Jesus did miracles and this and that and all that, but they are flipping it around to, you know, so it seems more like of a damage control document. But it talks about that there was a lot of conflict between the believers of the Jews or of the Nazarenes, you know, and in regards to the leaders of Judaism and all that, and the leaders of Judaism wanted this, you know, wanted to pull them away from Judaism in regards of the festivals and all that. So according to this document, they sent Paulus. And to change, you know, times and laws pretty much in regards of, and get them away from Judaism, you know, actually commandment found in the Bible. So anyway, and that's exactly what Paul actually has done when you look at his letters. So whether it's true or not in regards to the Hebrew document, it is actually what Paul is actually pretty much doing. So. Anyway, for they had seen Trophimaeus the Ephesian with him before in the city, and they, you know, how can you lose salvation for by doing something that Yeshua did? You know, why would you lose salvation on that? You know, I don't know. Anyway, how can you, you know, when you see Christians defending the pagan Roman traditions, and, you know, and of course, you know, Christ Mass has many links in regards of different direction in regards of paganism. And in Denmark, we call it Yule, and that goes back to Yulna, which goes back to the false god Odin and all that. But in regards of Christ Mass, goes back to Rome in regards of, you know, the Mass of Romanism, the blasphemous mass that thinks to make the cookie god, and they're allowed to worship it, and they think to sacrifice it for the dead and the living again and again and again and again and so forth, all that bullshit. But anyway, And then, of course, we have Saturnalia and all that. That seems to actually might have been the festival that was, changed from. But it has a lot of things. And in any case, it does. Of course, John Chrysostom is also beginning to promote it in the 4th century. And he's attacking all the so-called Jewish festivals, really harshly, very viciously. And then he begins to promote, Christ Mass. I'm not sure here if he actually calls it Christ Mass, but in regards of, hey, they, in Rome, they knew when Jesus was born and all that. This is in the 4th century. Oh, so we see how it, how the system works to turn us away, and they are trying to, the Romanizers are trying to, get us, we don't want to be like the Jews. But Jesus was a Jew. Give me a break, Anyway, and we see the persecution of people keeping the Sabbath, not wanting to eat, swine and all that. How diabolical do you actually need to be if you actually, trying to force people to eat something they don't want to eat, And that doesn't really sound really Christian-like, does it, And what is so bad if someone doesn't want to eat pig? It's in the Torah. It is unclean food. So it's just keeping the law. But of course, you will be persecuted if you get too close to the truth. And I believe in Yeshua. So anyway, so let's see here. So and the entire city was stirred up, and all the people assembled. And they seized Paulus, and they dragged him outside the temple, and immediately the gate was shut. And while the crowd was seeking to kill him, it was heard by Kiliach of the regiment that the whole city had been stirred up. And immediately he took a centurion and many soldiers and ran unto them. And when they had seen the Kiliach and the soldiers, they ceased beating Paulus. And the Kiliach came and took him and commanded to bind him with 2 chains. And he was asking about him, who he was and what he had done. And men from the mob were shouting this and that about him. And because of their shouting, he was unable to know what the truth was, and commanded to bring him to the encampment. And when Paulus came to the stairs, the soldiers carried him because of the violence of the people. For many people were coming after him and shouting, and they were saying, hang him. I don't know why in regards of hang him. I don't know what was in regards, what was Ingrid? Away with him. There's a good difference in regards of hang him and away with him, I would think. There is a spot, what do you call it? There is a star in regards to this. So there should be more information. Okay. That's nice. The Aramaic word here is shakulaihi. It's the same used in Lucas 23:18 and John 19:15 by Christ's enemies when they cried out, crucify him. Okay. So interesting. According to the Aramaic, that's interesting, I think. And when he approached to enter the encampment, Paulus said to Kiliach, if you allow me, I shall speak with you. But he said to him, do you know Greek? So apparently Paulus is speaking Greek at this point. Are you not that Egyptian who before these days made a disturbance and led 4,000 criminal men to the wilderness? So apparently he believes he's pretty much lost in regards to who Paulus is. Paulus said to him, I am a Jew from Tarsus. And apparently Paulus also knew Hebrew because, according to one of his visions, he said that Jesus was speaking in Hebrew to him, right? So, the notable city of Kilikru, in which I was born, I beg you, let me speak to the people. And when he allowed him, Paulus stood on the stairs and was motioning to them with his hand. And when they were quiet, he spoke with them in Judean Aramaic. So apparently it talks about his Aramaic and said to them, let's see what it says in the commentary. The Hebrew word Ibrahit and the Aramaic word Ibrahit can each referred to the Hebrew language or the Aramaic language. We know from history and other biblical evidence that Aramaic was the common tongue of the first century. Well, I'm not totally sure in regards to that, but anyway, how that, because, anyway. So he apparently, so he says that it can actually, it seems like he's talking about it can actually go in both directions in regards of it. So he's speaking in either Hebrew or Aramaic. And apparently also knows Greek, He's a very learned man. Actually, the Jewish source of Toldot Yeshua also talks about that they found a very, a learned man to, and of course, Paulus was, would be considered a very learned man. In regards of, being educated in a lot of things. So anyway, so either Aramaic or Hebrew, apparently. And said to them, I do wonder in regards of, because if the gospel is actually found in Hebrew, and as they say, we have sources says that Matthew was written. We have multiple sources saying that Matthew, the book of Matthew, was originally written in Hebrew. Why would it be written in Hebrew if the people were speaking Aramaic and not Hebrew? Because what's the idea of, if the people are not able to read Hebrew? Maybe they could speak more languages. I don't know. Hebrew and Aramaic would be like sister languages, like close, like Danish and Swedish, or Danish or Norwegian and all that. Anyway, so he says, "Brothers and fathers, hear my defense unto you." And when they heard that he was speaking Judean Aramaic, and again, it might actually be Hebrew. With them, they were all the more quiet, and he said to them, because I would think it actually would be more in regards of Hebrew, because why would they be? Let's see here. Let's see what the King James say. And when they heard that he spake in the Hebrew tongue to them, they kept more silence, and he said, Again, Aramaic or Hebrew. I would think Hebrew would be. Here we go. Let's see here what they say. CX 21, 40, 26, 40. I don't know what that is in regards. And when we heard all fallen to the ground, I heard a voice speaking to me and saying in Hebrew language. Okay, that's in regards of one of his. Okay. So, see here. Hebrew language. Okay, so, of course, compare parallel. Let's see what happens if I do that. Okay, so that's just different versions here. Okay. But rise up and stand upon your okay. So anyway, whatever. I would think it would be Hebrew and not Aramaic, and apparently it says that it can be both according to. I do wonder what the other version. 2 seconds. Let's see. I have another version of the Aramaic. I know of one more Aramaic translation that would be interesting to have, but it actually is on. It is on Play Store. No. That was some place where it actually. Maybe it was one in regards of the module for one of these biblical programs that has closed down and all that. That's very sad. That was that's three big Bible programs out there on the market, and the main one that I was looking at pretty much ended up closing down. I don't know if they're going to do something. I think it's very sad they closed the application down. At least if they're going to, they could have released the code for other people to work around. Anyway, I don't know. So, but apparently they didn't want to do that. So it would have been nice, having a full-blown open source Bible program that was just free and made by, and made and supported by. That would have been awesome. Let's see here. What does it actually says? The other translation I have here from the Hebrew, from the Aramaic, says the actually Hebrew. Brothers and fathers, listen to my defense before you. And when they perceived that he addressed them in Hebrew, 2:31, Hebrew is Lashon HaKodesh, literally tongue, the set apart. Paul has elevated the importance of what he is saying by speaking in Hebrew. I think that also makes more sense, that he's speaking in Hebrew and then they're, shutting up. Here it actually says that Aramaic is the lingua franca vernacular that was spoken throughout the Middle East, Assyria and Babylon at that time. Greek was the vehicular language spoken by not so welcome Roman occupiers. Therefore, by transferring from Aramaic into Hebrew, Paul has now gained the undivided attention of his fellow Jews. See Aramaic or Greek lingua franca and survey of Peshitta premises scholarship in appendix. Anyway, that's from what's it called? The guy doesn't really say on the front. It does say as this is in regards of Andrew Gabriel Roth. I do think he has some issues here and there as usual, but you always can find issues where you're not in agreement with something. But besides that, yeah. And that he gives some pretty good sources also in regards of the Hebrew Matthew and all that. So there's always good information sources and all that. And then of course there's some things that one doesn't agree with. Anyway, so I would think that Hebrew would also, so because they're getting silent, right? So it goes on in regards to talking about, this and that. Let's maybe go to the ONT. So he says, I am a Judean and I was born in Tarsus of Galilee, but I was raised. I do wonder in regards to the Judean, because isn't he also saying that he's of the tribe of, Dan or something? Not not the tribe of Dan. What's the tribe of Benjamin? Oh yeah, isn't he actually saying that he's from the tribe of Benjamin as far as I remember? Anyway, I guess again there could be some mix in regards of. But let's see. I'm a Judean. I was born in Tarsus of Kiliki, but I was raised in the city at the feet of Gamaliel, and I was instructed perfectly in the tradition of our fathers, and I'm zealous for God, as also are all of you. And I persecuted this way, and we get this way in regards of the way unto death, as I would bind and deliver men and women into prison. Paul was pretty much the first so-called Holy Inquisition, right? We still have the Roman Catholic Church doing their thing of, so-called Holy Inquisition, right? Where they're going around and killing the Christians and all that. But of course, the whore is drunken by the blood of the saints, so I guess that is to be expected. Anyway, and according to what the high priest witnessed of me and all the elders from whom I received warrants to go to the brethren who are in Damascus, so I also brought those who were there to Jerusalem as prisoners, and they would receive capital punishment. And, capital punishment for believing that Yeshua is the Messiah. Oh, give me a break, It's just incredible, right? How so you're saying that it's a criminal act to believe that Yeshua is the Messiah, okay. Anyway, and as I was going and began to approach Damascus at midday under the quiet sky, a great light burst upon me, and so forward. And then, So actually, he says, according to this, I'm Yeshua the Nazarene, whom you are persecuting. Anyway, and so forward. But there are 3 stories in the book of Acts, and there's 1 story in the book of Galatians. And if you try to set them up against each other, you might figure out that there are some issues. Anyway, so here he actually goes on to get some some points, I guess. And one man, Hananiah, righteous, or Kananya, I'm not entirely sure, righteous in the law. So there's someone keeping the law, as all the Jews was testifying about him, came to me and said to me, Brother Shaul, open your eyes. And at the moment my eyes were open and I saw. But wasn't there something in regards of... I think one of the stories talks about that. And that's one of the problems where he talks about going to Jerusalem, and yet the other, one of the other stories talks about actually him going to Arabia and all that for a time, and then coming back, and then going to Jerusalem. So again, I think there's some problems here and there. But anyway, I really say anyway so many times. So, but the thing is, we're getting off track here. But the thing is, in regards of the law. By the way, in regards of, if you want to see that all Asia left Paul, you can go to, and of course you can, of course people have to make up their own mind. But I just see too many issues. And there we go. Paulus says, "For you know this, that all those who are in Asia have turned away from me, of whom are Pygulus and Hermogenes." All, that's all, right? All means all, right? That all those, and for example, Dave Hunt used this to say that already in the 1st century there's already problems because and pointing to this thing in regards of turning away from Paul. But the thing is that the Christians in Asia Minor, in this area that had turned away from Paul, didn't turn away from Jesus. They just rejected Paul. Do you understand that? They still had contact with John the Apostle and Philip the Apostle and a lot of other disciples, most likely, in that area. They just rejected Paul. But Dave Hunt, uses this to actually show that there was already, that one have to be careful, because already in the 1st century we get problems. And I agree, we already get problems early on. One have to discern in regards to the leaven. The question is, who actually began to put the leaven in, Who came after Yeshua had sown the good eatable seed? Because someone, had to come. I would expect someone to come when Yeshua says that Satan, comes and sow the bad eatable seeds. Or the bad poisonous darnel. The bad poisonous. Hey, if I make a mistake, I'm sorry. I'm on a fungal treatment, and my head is not so. Yeah, of course, my head is. So much to study and all that. So, but I know I'm sometimes making mistakes, so just be aware of that. In regards of, anyway. So here we see that Paul is saying that all Asia left me, right? So let's go to Revelation 2:2. This is, again, the book of Revelation in regards of Yeshua making Yohanan, right? The Apostle Yohanan, or John, right to the 7 congregations in Asia Minor is the exact place where Paul is saying that they rejected him. So let's go to 2:2 now. And what do we see? And to the messenger of the assembly of Ephesus. We know Paul was in Ephesus, right? 2 or 3 years in Ephesus, according to what we have in the New Testament. So, and to the messenger of the assembly of Ephesus, right? Thus says he who holds the 7 stars in his hand, he who walks amongst the menorah of gold. And then, of course, is Yeshua, the one that was dead and is now alive forevermore. Anyway, I know your works, your toil, and your patience, and that you cannot tolerate the evil one. And you have tested those who claim to be apostles, and they are not, and you have found them false. Now, maybe we should try the, actually, interesting that you cannot tolerate the evil one. That's interesting, because I wonder if the King James says that. I don't remember. And how thou cannot spare them which are evil. Okay, so that's a little different. I do want, now of course the book of Revelation, as I understand it, was actually not, one of the translations in regards to the book of Revelation was from an Aramaic source. But as I understand it, we don't have an original of that. There's some information from that translator in regards to the book of Revelation where he thinks it actually might be closer to the original and all that. But anyway, I'm not so sure. But in any case, still interesting to see how they translated from a text. So it's nice to get some. Let's see here. Revelation 2:2. Let's see what it says here. And this, of course, this probably would just be a translation from the Greek, I would guess. 2:2. And I know your works and your toil and your patience, and you cannot endure the wicked, and you have tried them which say they are apostles and are not, and you have found them liars. Overall, it's a little slightly different, in regards of the evil one and all that, and whatever. I know thy works and thy labor and thy patience, and how thou cannot spare them which are evil. So actually that might make more sense than the evil one, but it doesn't. There's some variations there. But anyway, bear them which are evil. I think that actually would makes sense according to the poisonous darnel and all that. I guess they would be considered evil, right? It's Satan that sows those seeds, right? So what are those seeds that those tares? The darnel, the poisonous darnel. They're the children of Satan, pretty much. Anyway, looking like the real thing and yet not being the real thing. Anyway, and that thou hast tried them. So they needed to try them. So this is actually, it opens up a lot of things, because these are evil, but there's someone that apparently must have come in the name of Jesus Christ, because there's someone that they actually have to test, and finding them false, So again, this is in the first century, and then of course we go to the last letter of Paulus, and he says that all Asia left me. Well, if all Asia left him, and we actually in the book of Revelation see Yeshua talking about, could that be a connection? I think that could. And thou hast tried them which say they are apostles, and they are not, and has found them liars. So they tested them, they found out they were apparently pseudos, or lying, deceitful, and false. And I don't know if you can hear that, but I guess people are out to drink and all that. That's usually, and you have the police usually also driving around in regards of wee. Anyway, so yeah, that's and if you actually look in there's 7 letters for 7 congregations in Asia Minor. It's interesting, one of the places that is close by in regards of Paul writing to them that there isn't anything in regards of but Yeshua choose these 7 and again also we see Yeshua writing to these 7 congregations in Asia Minor, and it seems like that these congregations in Asia Minor was actually the closest. They had the most light, and Rome had some problems with that. That seems to be a struggle between the Asian Minor congregations and Rome. But I guess if they actually figured out that Paulus, Roman Pharisee Paulus, was false, and Paulus went to Rome, and might actually be a struggle between the what shall we say, the church of Paul or Paulus against the church of Jesus. And so I don't know, but again, at least there's a lot of conflict, and we see that Rome has pretty much corrupted so many things, hidden, persecuted the real Christians, burned their documents, that you are only allowed to read it in Latin and so forward, and this and that, and we see the quotes from Roman Catholics when the Protestants began to translate the Bibles, and how the Roman Catholics was looking at that, and that wasn't, it's very clear, I think, to point out that this organization of Roman Catholicism is utterly demonic. So nothing to, it makes it out to be Christian, yet it's not. And of course we see the amalgamation later on in regards to the Roman mystery religion with this, it takes on sheep clothing, and as I understand, in the 4th century, there was killed more Christians in the 4th century than the than the centuries before, and so forward. So anyway, so if we just, in regards to the law of Moses and all that, if we look on the first group, the mother, Rome says that she's the mother church and all that bullshit and all that. But if we actually look on the real mother church, they were Torah observant. And they thought that they should continue to keep the Torah. Anything else I could just, I know. Of course, in regards to Matthew 5, right? Of course, people want to, I think, twist things out of hand as well in regards to that. But I think it's pretty, we pretty much took it before in regards of, maybe it's Matthew. Here we go. Also, by the way, Jesus is talking, or Yeshua is talking about the future in one of the places. And he says, the love will grow cold because of what? Because of lawlessness. Well, didn't you say that the law was abolished? Well, apparently not, I don't know if I can find that place actually on the fly here. But that was something in regards of, let's see here. Love grow cold. Maybe I could just search on cold actually. There shouldn't be that many in regards of, okay, cold. Cold. I should be in the book of Matthew. Let's see, search in book of Matthew. No. Entire Bible. No. Custom. Matthew. And Matthew was the gospel that the Nazarenes was primarily using. So that gives it some credibility, I think. That would again be the first Christians. Here we go, Matthew 24:12. And if you want to look at the context, let's just take the context here. So let's see here. And he's talking about future in regards to prophecies, for nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations. How many is all? That's every nation in the world will hate the Christians. So all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another, and many false prophets, what? How many? Many false prophets shall rise. And we already know when Jesus is talking about false prophets. Now, of course, but the primary thing that Jesus is warning us about in regards to false prophets is wolves in sheep clothing. So, anyway. And many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. Of course, there is many false prophets that are not in sheep clothing as well, But that is really not a problem for the Christians as such, or should not be a problem for the Christians, because they don't proclaim as such to be Christians, So it's easy to discount them. The problem is those that actually are hiding in sheep clothing. Anyway, and then it goes on to say, and because iniquity is lawlessness, it's anomia, actually in regards of without law, the condition of without law, so the thing of having rejected God's law. It's not the Roman law we're talking about, it's in regards of and we know that Yeshua will reject people saying, Lord, Lord, haven't we done wonderful works and wonderful, miracles and driven out demons and all that? And he says, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity or lawlessness, ye that are without law. In regards to the Greek, without law. I do wonder in regards of how that would be in regards to the Aramaic, actually. Let's see. Let's see this one. And because of the abundance of evil, the love of many will grow cold. That doesn't seem to. Let's look at the other translation I have in regard to the Aramaic. As far as I know, they use the same Aramaic text to translate from. So let's see how he translates that. The second witness here. But again, having the Aramaic and the Hebrew, would be interesting to see, using all the information that we have to reconstruct things. Now, for example, the name of God is taken out in the New Testament, and the Aramaic actually have the name Maya, where the name of Jehovah should be. And so thereby, we don't have that in the Greek. So if you take the Greek and the Aramaic, you can, begin to correct some of the things and fix it in there again, right? So and because of the growth of iniquity, it says here. Okay, what does it say there? And because of the abundance of evil. Okay, I guess it's another way of saying it. Let's see, at the abundance of evil. Of course, lawlessness is evil, but I guess you're still missing the point with that translation in regards of breaking the law. But anyway, so and because of the growth of iniquity, the love of many will grow cold. So, So why in the future would we have in regards? Why would lawlessness equal the love of people growing cold? Well, maybe because the law is not abolished. In regards of the law of God, and when we don't care about the law of God, well, we end up in then the love grows cold. We have another document that's outside the Bible that also talks, that's also interesting in regards of getting the connection of it, that they had this understanding in regards of, so where do I have that? That's a good question, 2 seconds. Maybe a little more than 2 seconds. I should really stop saying 2 seconds, because it's a saying that we have, right? When you're like, oh, let's just I should really word it like, give me a while or something like that, or I don't know. Did I actually read that book? I read that book. Okay, that was in regards of Bibles and all that. Didache. Oh yeah, there we go with Didache. The Didache, which is said to be like a law book of. Which also talks about not eating food sacrificed to false gods, by the way. Now it could have, it could be, there's some interesting things, and there's some other things where it's like, where you're thinking, and here it actually talks about the last days in the Didache. So it says, it goes on here. So you must gather yourself in fellowship. I think that would be the English word here. Often, seeking those things that are most appropriate for you. For the whole time you believe will not profit you at all if you're not perfected in the final moment. In the last days, the false and lying prophets and corruptors will be multiplied, and the sheep will be turned into wolves, and love will be turned into hate. And in regards of love, that's in regards of, turned into hate. And what is hate? Well, let's see here. Love grow cold because of lawlessness. So hate would be, at least that's, so, and it goes on, and love will be turned into hate, and we already know in regards of, and the love of many shall wax cold, right? Because of iniquity, lawlessness. So the love, will be turned into hate. Anyway, for as crime, that would think that would be in regards of Torahless, what does... Yeah, actually, they actually talks. He puts a thing in regards of 62. He says Torah, disobedience, lawlessness, anomias. Okay, so the Greek word actually is anomias. So that for in regards of being without the law, I think anomia was law, and then a in the beginning was no law. So for as he puts it in regards of crime, and then puts the 62 on it and have some more information. He says the author is certainly not speaking of Roman laws here, but those of God Almighty, God Elyon. What is that? God? That's not Almighty, is it? But anyway, in regards of God. So, and he's putting some Hebrew words, and it's not always easy to. But anyway, so as the lawlessness increases, or crime, as he put it here, increases, they all will hate, persecute, and betray each other. Then the deceiver of the cosmos will appear as though it were the Son of God. So that's a deceiver. And it will work in performances and monstrosities, and the earth will be given over into its hands, and it will do perversities such as have never occurred in any age. So that's in regards to the Didache. Actually, we have the anomias actually in the Greek over here. It actually is anomias. Let's see. I can't even remember that word. Gautis anomias. Misis ons sino alilois kai theo exonai or something. I can't. Greek is. I haven't really practiced much in regards to the Greek and all that. And when you're not using it, it's just. Well, it's going forward. It's going forward, of course. But a long way in regards of just to understand some of the the letters and all that been and were it's just anyway still have a long way. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. So anyway, that's in regards of lawlessness, pretty much. So yeah, anomia, and I think in regards of origin from G4 that's anomus, no. Destitute of Mosaic law of the Gentiles, departing from the law, a violator of the law, lawless, wicked. But I think in regards to nomos and without the a, I think it's that's the opposite. So if you find law someplace, maybe we can just find law, and then we should find find the other word. Let's see. Interesting. Nomos, there we go. So that would be the law. So what is the opposite of law is so anomos in regards of without law. So we have with law or without law. I guess maybe the translators could actually have been more actually better to confer that information, but maybe they didn't want to actually do that. I don't know. I just think it could actually be, if it actually is the word for, as far as I understand it from the Greek and doing research, it seems to be the without law. Why not just write that then? Because you are without law. Instead of using crime or words like crime or iniquity or there's the lawlessness and all that. But why not just write without ye that are without law? Because the biggest problem in regards to Christianity is that people think the law is abolished, right? So it might be pretty important to know what is being said in regards to the law, right? That Yeshua actually will. Let's really go back here. Let's see if we can go back and see to the place that we down here someplace. And ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt have lost his savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is henceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden under foot of men. Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on an hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel. And actually, that's something that some of the Jews actually do. And I remember a source that he didn't know why they were doing it, but they were doing it. They light a candle and put it under. It's like we don't know why we do it, but we do it. I was like, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in the heavens, or heavens, actually plural usually. So anyway. So he goes on to say, think not. So think not. Don't think. Don't even think it. Not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. Now, what is the law and the prophets? Well, the law or the prophets are the so-called Old Testament. So what does he say? I'm not come to destroy. So he didn't come to destroy the law of Moses, did he? And of course, we see that his disciples were zealous for the law of Moses. What does he say? But to fulfill. Did he fulfill a lot of prophecies? Absolutely. Is everything fulfilled in the law and the prophets? No, there's still future prophecies. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass one jot or, and that's one of the reasons why the Jews haven't accepted Yeshua, because they were expecting, to expecting the Messiah to set up the kingdom and throw out the Romans and so forward and all that, because they saw these prophecies in the scriptures that hasn't been fulfilled. And of course, that's the second coming of Yeshua. Anyway, they just missed. They focused. That's, you see also in the Gospels where Jesus is trying to get the focus on the suffering servant, not the, So anyway, to his disciples. But anyway, for verily I say unto you, till heaven or the heavens and the earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled. Has all been fulfilled? No, according to the book of Revelation, we see when all is fulfilled, So everything is not fulfilled. So heaven and earth is still here and so forward. So is the law still standing? Yep, I would think so. Everything seems to point in that direction. And he says, whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I say unto you that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, ye shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. So what Yeshua is doing in regard to the law, he's refining the law. He's setting it. He's not breaking. He's just refining it. In regards of you shouldn't commit murder, but you shouldn't even think of committing murder. You shouldn't commit adultery, but you shouldn't even think of committing adultery. It's just the setting it. It's just he's not breaking the law. He's just what shall we say? Putting it on a deeper level in some sense. So anyway, that's pretty much it, I guess. And I need to go to the toilet, so I'll stop this. It's pressing somewhat, and of course 2 hours and all that. That's great. Anyway, may Jehovah be with you and bless you, and may Yeshua be a most precious pearl, and may the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of truth, be in us all. Amen. The children of God. So yeah, have a good one. And it's a Sabbath today, so just do your own, do a little digging and listen to the scriptures and anyway. So, but in any case, I don't think the law is abolished, and telling people that if they keep the law, they will lose salvation, I think it's outrageous, because believing in Yeshua is, and loving him is the highest commandment in the law. And if you actually follow the law, then you will, also be saved, because you would keep the first and highest commandments found in the law. To love Jesus and to turn to him, right? Anyway, have a good one, all of you. Bye-bye.